your Dynasty leagues are now waking up. All of your league mates who were gone are now reappearing and saying, oh, I want to make trades. And the market is cooling off on these particular players. And so we're going to recommend that you play the market here a little bit and sell these players for some guys that we think have a better chance from a value standpoint of increasing, have a higher ceiling production-wise, lateral moves, etc. For one reason or another, though, these are guys that we think you should move off of before your Dynasty rookie drafts. And let's start with the first one, James Cook, running back, Buffalo Bills. We're gonna get crap for this one. I understand. I get why people I get why people like James Cook. I do, because he's in a really good situation. Not to mention he has been productive. And when I say productive, I mean, like, you know, I had James Cook on a couple of my championship-winning Dynasty teams last year. Now, I will say I have already put my money where my mouth is on this one, and I've started pivoting off of James Cook, especially in the teams where I want to maybe do a little bit of a value reload, which, you know me, I'm always wanting to do value reloads. But he was the running back 8 last year. You know, he's asking for an extension. Not sure if he'll get it or not. But when you're looking at what he did last year, he was the running back 8. The man had 18 touchdowns on the year. He is due for a little bit of touchdown regression there. I think anybody who looks at his profile and looks at the, you know, his touchdowns as a percentage, I'll just do it right now. His touchdowns as a percentage of his overall fantasy production would look at that and say, yeah, we're probably going to expect a little bit of regression. So 108 points in a full point PPR leagues from James Cook were his touchdowns. And you take that as a percentage of the total 266 points that he scored on the year. It's 40%, 41% of his production came from touchdowns last year. And so I think from a production standpoint, when you're looking at what he was able to do last year, finishing as a mid running back 1, I'm not sure with the running back class coming in and some of the guys I think you're going to see, you know, be productive from day one. I'm not sure you don't see James Cook just by default pushed down into either A, you know, I think best case low end running back 1 range, or B, high end to mid running back 2 range. And I think when we see that as Dynasty players, as the market sees that, we're automatically going to adjust from a value standpoint. When you're looking at what his market value is right now, according to our live league ADP, he's been going in the 5th round, usually mid to late 5th, but he's going around guys like Josh Jacobs, Devonta Smith, Sam Laporta, you know, Chris Olave, the 107. And so I told you, I've already pivoted off of James Cook. I traded him for Addison in a mid-second. Him and Addison go about a half round apart. I was on a reload. I want the, you know, insulated value of Addison. Addison's also been productive, and I trust him. And so I made that trade. Roast me in the chat if you hate it. Jacobs, I think Josh Jacobs is somebody you could pivot to from James Cook, just because I'm a little bit more confident this year. When you're looking at Jacobs, Jacobs was able to produce at the beginning of last year while not scoring any touchdowns. He finished the year with 15 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. You might say, okay, that is really not that different, Avery. No, but he did score 25, 30 more PPR points total than James Cook, all while doing so with less touchdowns. He had more yards than James Cook. And also, you know, frankly, I don't trust the Packers to bring in a receiving core that's really going to take away from a red zone perspective from Josh Jacobs. Like, I think it's possible with James Cook. So I think a pivot to Josh Jacobs, I feel a little bit more comfortable there. But also up-tiering to either Kyren Williams or Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is somebody we've been, you know, at the beginning of the offseason, we're like, yeah, we're probably going to pivot off of Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. We had to stop recommending pivots on the blueprints because his value has now fallen to where he's, you know, I think consistently going early 5th, mid 5th. That is a pretty good price for Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion. Like, that's the price where I'll invest in a running back and just let him die on my roster. Because, you know, even with Jonathan Taylor, you're looking at the situation with Indianapolis, and it's not great. We'd be the first to tell you that. He was a running back 1 last year in 14 games. But again, he was the running back 12. He almost had as many points last year as James Cook did. Meanwhile, you're looking at James Cook playing in 2 more games. And so I think Jonathan Taylor, I can count on him being more productive. You know, his floor is a little bit higher because, again, from a yardage standpoint and from a volume standpoint, he's going to, you know, own that backfield more than James Cook will. So, and, you know, Kyren Williams, again, you know, we've set our part on Kyren Williams, but I'm comfortable up tiering there as well. So I'd make those moves. And again, I really just, from a production standpoint, thinking, you know, from a point standpoint and from a value standpoint, a little bit more comfortable with some of those guys than James Cook. So I think, you know, it's a decent time to move off of him in Dynasty, considering that, again, he was a running back 1. His value is here. I don't really think there's a scenario where he increases his value. I really don't. I mean, unless he's a top 3 running back, which is just not happening.
Yeah. Devonta Smith is someone that I love as a talent. I love watching him play. I love the way that he fits into the Eagles offense and makes him so dominant, Super Bowl caliber, and they just got, you know, a ring, with a big reason being Devonta Smith and that wide receiver core, him and A.J. Brown. But with Smith, I've just found in so many of the blueprints that we've been doing, there's a lot of contending teams that own Devonta Smith specifically, where, you know, maybe he's being plugged into their flex, or maybe he's their second, third option. And I'm just not really comfortable with that for a guy that, let's be honest, his name is kind of bigger than his production and his consistent production. Obviously, this year was very, very hit or miss. He was banged up a little bit throughout the season, and man, are his big games big. I mean, he can have 30-point games and be phenomenal, but you're talking about a big, big range of wide receivers where Devonta Smith is right at the top, and you've got equivalent production for all those wide receivers below him in situations that are the same, if not better, in terms of like where they actually belong on the depth chart and the opportunity target volume that they're going to get. One thing that I think is a huge red flag for me and why I'm pretty comfortable pivoting off of Devonta Smith, down tiering especially, is looking at his production this year compared to his targets this year compared to what he did his first 3 seasons. He had 90 targets this year, which was roughly on average, it was about a 20 target dip, which is huge, absolutely huge. And I think what the common denominator there is, or what the big indicator is, how much Saquon Barkley is really taking away from that passing game. No one ran the ball more than the Eagles did last year, and they won a Super Bowl doing it. They're going to keep doing that. Saquon gets an extension. A.J. Brown obviously gets that extension. And Devonta Smith, actually, I mean, Devonta Smith in terms of safety, he is very safe, and I'll give that to him. I don't know how he does it. You know what his cap hit is over the next 3 years? $7 million, $10 million, and $14 million. Cooper Kupp is making more on an annual basis right now than Devonta Smith is. Like, that should be illegal. But I will say, with Smith, even though he's safe, how much room does he really have to increase in value? You've got wide receivers ranked above him, like just above him in the tier right above, that are Rome Odunze. T. Higgins was there before the extension, obviously, but Rome Odunze and Rashee Rice being the big names, they both have the upside and the potential. Not just the upside. Rashee Rice established himself as a wide receiver 1 in Kansas City's offense last year before the injury. Rome Odunze was drafted to be the wide receiver 1 down the road in a Ben Johnson offense now in Chicago. I would easily up tier to those types of wide receivers. I would pivot. This is disgusting. Can't lie, but let's be honest. I'd rather have Zay Flowers as a wide receiver 1 in an offense that runs the ball just as much as the Eagles do, but there's less competition. Zay Flowers has more opportunity to command more target volume, and he did, and he will continue to. Chris Olave obviously being shorted because of the concussion history and stuff, which is merited. But again, his upside is much higher. DJ Moore as well. I just mentioned Rome Odunze. DJ Moore can be productive in his own right. He can be a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 again. With Devonta Smith, I mean, keep in mind, guys, 2024, he was a wide receiver 3. 2021, as a rookie, he was a wide receiver 3. He's been a wide receiver 2 once. He's been a wide receiver 1 once in 2022. He gets his own in the red zone. He gets touchdowns every single year, but if that target volume is actually going to continually be that with 90 targets, and I wouldn't bet on it going up much, what's your ceiling with Devonta Smith, really? His value can only go up so high.
So I think the pushback that you'll get on that, and that I would like to ask you about, is are you attributing any of his wide receiver 3 finish? He was almost a wide receiver 2 analytically, to him only playing 13 games last year and being injured for part of the year.
Yeah, sure. Then he's a wide receiver 2. Again, the conversation that I'm having here is less about his production. I think the big games for Devonta Smith are great. There are wide receivers that I didn't even mention below him. DK Metcalf is valued lower than he is, and his production consistency is about the same. Jamison Williams, I think, demonstrated to you what his production consistency could be on an annual basis with the way that he really broke out in his 3rd year. You've got your veterans down low, obviously, which are debatable. That's totally fine. But Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, but like all the guys that I mentioned around him, DJ Moore, Zay Flowers, I think every single one of these guys has a higher potential to be more productive, which just by default is going to result in them increasing in value over Devonta Smith down the line, where Devonta Smith, while he's safe and is going to stay there, can't move up much higher.
Yeah. And it is, we are going through and talking about which players that we want to move off of, and honestly,
we're playing the market. This doesn't mean we hate the players. This just means
not.
We want to get value.
Have these players.
We want to get value wins, right? If you want value stagnation is basically the negative term for value insulation. If you want insulation, Devonta Smith is insulated. I don't really have an issue with you holding him, especially if you need him on your team and he's like the very last flex option on your roster, or maybe you're plugging him in here and there and stuff. But ultimately, like if he's your second option, kind of like the same issue that we had with DK Metcalf's price last year.
Yeah. When
it was just way too high, and we were like, I don't like him as my wide receiver 2. Sometimes I don't even like him as my wide receiver 3. But at price, if you're just if he's your flex option, then I like him a lot better there. I think that's the same sort of situation with Devonta Smith.
And again, it is team dependent. It's going to depend on what your roster looks like. But you're going to have a lot of these guys in your dynasty leagues. And I mentioned this now, waking up and trying to trade. And so we have everything you need to make sure you're dominating your dynasty leagues during these very crucial months of April and May, where all of your league mates are active and you can make as many trades as possible. You can get our entire rookie draft toolkit, which includes everything that we are going to offer. It includes our bakery, it includes our 2025 rookie draft guide, our new rookie draft tool. It also includes a team blueprint and a rookie draft blueprint for free with that team blueprint. It's a whole other, section of our team review that we're adding for these 2 months. And you get one for free with the annual Motherflocker tier at flockfantasy.com/domain. But any Motherflocker tier is going to get you access to all of these tools. So making sure, like I said, you're making the right moves, that you're taking advantage of your league mates, and that you're winning your dynasty leagues when dynasty leagues can be won, and that's in April and May. So we'd love to have you come join the community. We've got tons of people that are going to be over there during the draft, after the draft, and it's the best place to chat up and talk about dynasty and also get one-on-one advice from Nathan and I. So flockfantasy.com/domain. You should use code domain annual Motherflocker tier. You have to use code domain to unlock all that, but the link is going to be pinned down below. Let's talk about somebody who's not really a sexy name anymore, but I think he's got some eye-popping weaknesses in his game now. And I think it does point to him being a little bit less fantasy productive and fantasy reliable, but he still is going at a decent spot in startups, and it's Deebo Samuel. And Deebo Samuel's price, I think the trade was fine for him. Hasn't really affected his price. He's been going on average around the 9-10 turn, usually in dynasty startups. And there are just a lot of guys here. When you're looking at Deebo and his reception perception write-up that just came out this last week, I don't know Matt Harmon, but I am a big fan of his work, and I think that you can really use these to kind of take a glimpse into where a wide receiver, especially an aging wide receiver, where his career is going. When you're looking at his success by route chart, you'll notice the only really routes that he was a banger on was the screen, getting it thrown to him in the flat, and then slants. Outside of that,
everything got worse.
Outside of that is pretty rough. Not to mention when you're looking at his success rate against man coverage, it had dipped below 60%, is what he says in the article. Now his success rate versus man coverage is at 39.7%, which is abysmal. It's bad. So he's a zone beater, somebody that if you get him design touches, he's going to have a role in an NFL offense that is good for an NFL offense. But he's probably past the days where he's a volume guy at this point. And really, from a fantasy football perspective, that's a huge red flag for us. And so, we're going to talk about another guy in this video that kind of is the same thing. And so it's no knock against Deebo. He really did serve his purpose for our dynasty teams, for our fantasy teams. But you do have Davante Adams in the last couple drafts. Even after Davante Adams went to the Rams, you actually did see Davante Adams kind of his value fluctuate, and he's jumped up probably, a round higher. In the last draft, he went a round higher than Deebo Samuel. I will pay up for Davante Adams from Deebo. He's going to be a much better asset for your team. Davante Adams is somebody that when you're looking at his, advanced analytics, he's actually still hanging on there, right? I've read his reception perception write-up as well, as much more promising. So I would pay up a little bit to get Davante Adams. Michael Pittman's going right next to him. With Pittman, he's somebody that's still, not aging yet, not really old, and is still going to get some volume. He was atrociously bad last year, and your two idiot favorite dynasty creators told you to buy him. Yeah, not great, but I do think at this price I would pivot to Pittman. I think he's going to be safer than Deebo. I think he'll maintain his value longer than Deebo. Mark Andrews, if you want to get a startable tight end, Mark Andrews at the end of the year last year was plenty good, and you can get him in a deal like this. They're going pretty much value adjacent to each other, as well as Geno Smith, a perfect quarterback 3 for your team. So if you need a quarterback 3, go get Geno, man. Geno is going to fill that hole. Every good contending Superflex dynasty team has a startable quarterback 3. You have to have it. And he's the cheapest quarterback 3 you can get right now. You can get him for Deebo Samuel prices, and I'm just to the point where I don't think Deebo is going to make as much of a difference in your flex spot and as opposed to having a competent quarterback 3 when you go to make a push for a championship and also, potentially account for injuries. So Deebo, he's in the fantasy history books. He obviously is one of the most dynamic players that we've ever we've ever started on our fantasy rosters, but I think the days of him being a super high output fantasy guy, I think they're probably past us at this point.
Yeah, we have really been careful with Jalen Waddle until now. I think we've probably been the quietest with Jalen Waddle that we've ever been. I think I have one share, and it's gross, but Jalen Waddle for me, I'll be completely honest. The reason we have him on this video is because some of this is a gut thing where it's like he is just truly in my opinion, the grossest wide receiver to own in Dynasty at the moment, and we've kind of been at a stalemate figuring out what to do with him. Here's what I know about the other wide receivers that are priced around him. I'm more confident in them being productive for the next 2 years than I am with him. I just am. And why is that the case? I mean, you can just look at Jalen Waddle's production since he was in 2022 a wide receiver 1. The touchdowns are the big elephant in the room where he's lost a ton of that. And then very similar to Devonta Smith is his target volume has gone down significantly. Why is that the case? Because Mike McDaniel runs the frick out of the ball, and Devon Achane has really thrown a wrench into things for the production of both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in that same offense. Not to mention the volatility of Tua being in that offense consistently. We don't know how long he's going to play long term, and I don't want to take injury to account too much here. But guys, Jalen Waddle was not startable last year. Not startable. And when Tua came back, he was not startable. Before Tua went down, he was not startable. Like, there is a point where production does matter in Dynasty, and when Jalen Waddle is being priced around guys who can contribute to you winning a Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship, I would rather have DK Metcalf than Jalen Waddle. And even with the quarterback room being in limbo there in Pittsburgh, DK Metcalf just got paid $30 million a year to be the wide receiver 1 there. And if anything, he's shown that he can be consistent regardless of situation year after year after year with bad to good quarterback play all across the spectrum in Seattle. Xavier Worthy, from an athletic perspective, isn't the same style of player as Jalen Waddle is, but in terms of like his consistent production on a week-to-week basis, very similar. He's kind of a big play field stretcher sort of guy. He's in a better offense, in a better situation. With Rashee Rice coming back healthy next year, which is going to help him schematically. You obviously saw how that worked out towards the end of the year with Hollywood Brown coming back into that offense. Hollywood Brown is now coming back as well on another 1-year deal. I would rather have Xavier Worthy than Jalen Waddle. Some of this is age as well. By the time that Tyreek Hill is out of this offense, Jalen Waddle is going to be 27 years old. The cap hit for Tyreek Hill this year is $27 million. They have an out after 2026. If Tyreek Hill is kind of mediocre this year, which there's a chance that he is, even if he's good this year, they might just not want to take his $51 million cap hit in 2026. I would just guess. That would be my guess.
Maybe not.
With Tyreek Hill. So, but again, all that to say, by the time we get to a point where Jalen Waddle can actually have the potential to be the top option in his offense, we don't know what that situation is going to look like in Miami. There was a lot up in the air there. So I think he's kind of risky. Jameson Williams is kind of what you wanted Jalen Waddle to be last year, and he is that right now. You have your own questions and plenty of risk with Jameson Williams in Detroit's offense, which we recognize. We don't even love Jameson Williams. But I'd be more confident in JMO going into 2025 than I would be Jalen Waddle. And that's just the truth. So with Waddle, this is more of like a, man, he's got good talent. I just hate the situation so much, and it feels so gross. Avery's out on him completely because he doesn't have any shares of him. I don't want to have any shares of him. I'm stuck with one. So if you have the ability to go get one of those wide receivers that I mentioned, I would capitalize.
All right, let's talk about Cooper Kupp. I want to kind of go back to the same method I used before. I read his reception perception write-up as well, and really, you didn't need to figure out kind of what was going on with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was obviously very, very good there for a couple seasons, right? He was elite. In fact, 2 years ago, Cooper Kupp was going in the second round of Dynasty Startups, which is insane to think about. I don't know if we were ever in on that price, to be honest with you. I don't remember, though. Who knows? We were young and stupid. We're still young and stupid. But, you look at his success by route, it's kind of the same thing. Flats, outs, and screens where he had the most of his success. The rest of it wasn't great. But really, you're looking at the success rate versus different types of coverage. And what you'd expect to see is that his zone coverage success rate is higher than his other types of coverage rates. And that's true here. But success rate against zone, I think, peaked somewhere in the 90s when he was really good. It's down into 76%. It's the 30th percentile in the league. And so even what he's best at, he's really not that good at it anymore. Not to mention man coverage, 3rd percentile, press coverage, 3rd percentile. I mean, they're really not good numbers. I think a lot of people attributed his success, and I don't think this is all him not playing with Stafford anymore. But a lot of people are going to say
he was good with Goff.
He was, but even last year, the data we have him, and he wasn't good with Stafford. No. And so it's not even just that he's not going to be playing with Stafford anymore. Which Stafford, when Stafford gets those guys who are good against zone coverage, I mean, he'll just slice you apart. Yeah. He will hyper focus on that guy and slice you apart. He's done it.
Puka became that guy really in a lot of ways, and Kupp just lost his step.
Well, you've seen Matt Stafford support some of the better wide receiver seasons of all time with Calvin Johnson back in the day and Cooper Kupp, and then you've got Puka Nacua and down there who is starting to really come into his own as a young guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what a huge indicator is too of just how Cooper Kupp is probably, I think his best days are behind him by a long shot, is they went out of their way to let go of Cooper Kupp. You would have thought that they were going to go younger. They went and they signed a 32-year-old wide receiver in Devontae Adams, who is just subjectively better at this point in his career. And I think that was the biggest indicator for you that they were willing to go get another old guy just because Cooper Kupp, it was apparent that he just was a shell of what he used to be.
They were willing to scheme, to cater their scheme to fit his strengths for a long time.
And it got to the point.
It got to the point where it wasn't worth it for them anymore.
Right.
And so I don't know why it's going to be any better. I mean, look, for that type of receiver, Matt Stafford is probably 3 times better than Sam Darnold. So I think situationally, you're looking at a pretty big drop off as well. I don't think anybody's going to really push back on this, right? I think it's pretty obvious. His career is in decline, but I really don't think he's should be worth hardly anything, and he does still have some value. When you're looking at the guys going around him right now, Jacoby Myers, give me Jacoby, dude. Jacoby's productive. Jacoby's not old yet. I mean, he's not old, but I mean, Jacoby's legit a wide receiver 2 every single year, priced at wide receiver 6 prices. Sign me up. Darnell Mooney, I'd rather just take a shot that he would be productive again this year with Michael Penix than I would, Cooper Kupp with Sam Darnold. I just feel like that's a safer bet. He's going below Cooper Kupp. I'd rather just pivot to Trey Benson. I think Trey Benson has a shot at being the starting running back in Arizona, and from a dynasty standpoint, I'll take my shot and take anything I can get right now with Cooper Kupp trading away. You got guys like David Njoku down there. Njoku was very productive last year from a Titan standpoint. Not to mention, if the Browns do draft a quarterback, then they're probably not going to be able to draft a super high-end wide receiver, leaving Njoku to get a lot of those targets this year. And so I would think he would be a better asset for your dynasty team. We talk about Pittman. You can throw him in here as well. I mean, Pittman's going next to Kupp, and I would just take Pittman over him. So
yeah. Okay, so I want to set this up for you guys. I just want you to imagine. Imagine being Dynasty Fantasy Football creators. You love football so much that you buy a couple cameras and you record yourself and you put it on YouTube and you give people advice about Dynasty Fantasy Football because football means that much to you. Because you've grown up loving football. You've been raised the right way. You grew up watching Andrew Luck. You grew up watching Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, all these different guys. You know what good football looks like. And then you have Indiana football. And it's awful. And it's been awful for decades. It's never been good. And then the COVID year hits and 2020 hits. And all of a sudden, this guy named Michael Penix comes out of nowhere and decides to beat Penn State with his legs in overtime. And
yeah, he did get in, by the way. Thank you.
He was in. Did get in.
Put the picture up, Sherry. Penn State fans suck it. Okay,
yes. But Indiana football came alive at that point. It made Tom Allen, it made him his career and what he is now, a pretty good DC and stuff. But we love Michael Penix. So don't take this the wrong way. We absolutely love Michael Penix. We've been following him for years and years and years. We've been rooting for him. We were huge advocates for him as a value last year going in the first round. We said that he should be going in the first round before I think anyone else in the dynasty space was able to take that shot. And with Michael Penix, his price is now at a point where I don't think he can't really go much higher, even if he has a solid year this year. Look at the other quarterbacks that are going in his range at price in superflex formats. Baker Mayfield, who has a contract and just got Godwin back to pair with Mike Evans, and McMillan is now showing out and looking really solid. Trevor Lawrence, huge extension. Liam Cohen, who just ran that offense in Tampa last year, is now in charge of the offense in Jacksonville. Lawrence is incredibly secure. He might be risky from a production perspective. He's no more risky than Michael Penix is from a production perspective, and he's a lot safer long term. Brock Purdy is in a Kyle Shanahan offense that is built for easy quarterback points. Your opinion of his talent aside and whether he deserves that job, or deserves a long-term contract, all that stuff, he's productive and he's incredibly safe and he's a mid quarterback one when he's healthy. Jared Goff has been a mid to low end quarterback one consistently for the last 3 years since Detroit really turned on. Dak Prescott plus, you can get Goff plus and Dak Prescott plus, who both have insane contract insulation, and when they are playing and when they're at their best are mid quarterback ones. You are hoping, you're crossing your fingers that Michael Penix will ever be a mid quarterback one. he can't get any higher at this point because, again, there's a massive gap between your rushing upside quarterbacks because there's a good number of them now and the rest of the field. You could add Burrow in there at the top. You have Allen, Lamar, Hurts, Daniels, Burrow. Those are your top 5 quarterbacks that pretty much, barring injury, every single one of those guys, they're going to amount to the top 5 producing quarterbacks. That means you're hoping that Michael Penix can be the best of the non-rushing QBs and be quarterback 6 or 7. You know what that's going to do to his value? If he were to do that best case scenario, he'll go up around because he's already going early 4th round.
He might maintain.
He could maintain, and that is very possible. But the value upside potential of a lot of these quarterbacks, Goff and Dak, I think are really the biggest highlights here. We've talked about Dak plenty as a buy. Goff, I don't think we've talked about as much. But these guys really are just, they can only fall so far because of the security that they have at the quarterback position. Penix can fall a lot further than he can move up boards, and Dak and Goff can move up way, way higher. So keep that in mind with Penix. I think he's gotten to a point where his price point for us, as much as we love him and are rooting for him and hope that we are dead wrong and he ends up being an early 2nd round Dynasty startup pick next year in Superflex formats, I think it's highly, highly unlikely. You're just not going to get a massive value in there.
Again, this is what it's like to play Dynasty with your head, not your heart, because he's one of my favorite football players of all time. Legit. He was awesome to me during the COVID years. And Nathan's right. Especially since the Dynasty community has just completely rescinded its opinions on non-rushing quarterbacks, like you mentioned, that aren't top 10 guys. So how much higher is he going to go? So again, with these guys, do we hate them? Oh, of course not. We own some of these guys. I have shares of these guys still. Some of them I'm going to have to hold. It may not be a bad idea for you to hold. Every league is different, and so monitor your situation with respect to your league and how your league mates are, giving you offers. You might not be able to make these moves. That's totally okay. A lot of these guys do have some insulated value. You're definitely not going to lose a ton of value on any of these guys, I don't think. But these are moves that, shots that we're going to call. Are we going to be wrong about some of these? 100% yes. We look back every year and we're like, that was wrong, right? We are some of the wrongest people of all time when you think about it. Wrongest. But also, we are some of the dynastiest people of all time if you think about it. So we do like that. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe if you play Dynasty. And if you're one of the dynastiest people of all time. We gotta start building that into our vocabulary. Come join the Discord and all these people who are probably factually the dynastiest people that I have ever met over on our Discord, and come get the rookie draft toolkit and the team blueprint. So Nathan and I can look personally at your dynasty team, and we can help you decide, what specific deals you should be making for these guys. So we appreciate you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.